Welcome to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. And away we are. Saeed just having to through the back of the bunch up at the front. Hassan got a great start there. Very quickly away. Mr. X100 right up in the mix. Mr. X100 just keeping that pace high. Knudsen comes up on his right shoulder but doesn't attack, doesn't go over the top here. It's not a massive attack. Go on, Pop, because I think he's been passed by our chasing group. Vink is on the front with a fractional gap, and you can see behind 4 riders in close attendance, but Vink is pushing on here. Michael Vink, who took victory last time out by far and away, his best qualifying result. Knudsen, Jones, Vink, all in the mix with Mr. X100. They are our 5 leading riders. We've got another kicker coming in now. Mr. X100 on the front. Knudsen goes up to 10 watts per kilo, 11 watts per kilo. Knudsen puts his attack in on this steep section. How many times can he do this? He's going to come into the tunnel. We've got to pop out the other side, but look at Jones. Jones comes up 14 watts per kilo. It's 14 watts per kilo coming out of Knudsen. They've got to answer this. We're seeing the big numbers coming out now. Jones is at 10.9. Who can answer this? They are all answering it. There is nothing to choose between them. I remember our last ramp up is a steep one, but we've got to run in. We're on 200 metres to go. This dip is about carrying the pace. Ollie Jones has got the race lead. The gantry is coming. Is it going to be Jones? Jones comes through. It's going to be time. So hello and welcome. My name's Matt Payne. I'm here in the studios for MyWhoosh's Sunday Race Club. This is the first qualifier in August, qualifier race number 1. Remember, we have our qualifiers, and then we move on to our big prize money final. That is at the end of each month on MyWhoosh, on the Sunday Race Club. We've got a fantastic race coming up. We've got a packed field of entries, and I'm looking forward to all of the action. I'm joined by Emma, who is with me once again. Emma Martin, of course, coach, rider and competitor. And we have some interesting stats. Emma busy scribbling in the background. Now, our course today, we are in the Talmoriba route, which is one of our favourite routes. Now, this is essentially 2.5 laps of a circuit, which means that the riders will get to look at the finish. The finish is the higher of the 2 climbs that you see marked out there, and the total race distance of 44.8k, important to note, rather than the standard 45 that we have. Big elevation, 835 meters. And as you can see, the route is not flat, even without the categorized climbs. Take those out, you still got a very bumpy route. It is characterized by a flat start to each lap, and then the hillier second section that brings them back round in towards the start line once again. However, this course really does test the riders' skills. It tests what they can do in a group, and they've got to be really smart with their tactics here today. And I'm looking forward to this playing out. Emma, welcome, of course, to MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. We're back again, and really interesting course.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Matthew, wherever you are in the world. It's a really, really interesting course today. And as you can see with the profile, we've got 6 category 4 climbs today. They're not long, but they are steep. That steepest climb got an average of a 12.3% today, and we're going up that 3 times for the finish. So a real puncher's course today, not a long climb to the end as we've seen traditionally, a real different type of course, which hopefully is going to give us some really exciting racing.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see just who can take this course on and battle it out. And I'm looking forward to seeing what is a packed field take on the course. Now, we're going to start off with our Category 1, the UAE Clan team. Absolutely nailing this. They are the team to beat. They have taken top victories. They've either been first or second team pretty much all the way through last month's qualifiers. They were second in the final, though, and we're going to see if they can take a victory. They have a lot of very, very competent riders in there, led by their road captain, that's Mr. X100. but you cannot discount any of these riders as they race through. The Yorkshire Pudding Express, well, they are the aggressors in this race. They're the guys who we know are going to be putting in the brakes. Watch out for Mitch Ferry and Tim Cutler on the attack. Phil Grace usually holding back a little bit, but there to fight it out in the final. Will he have the legs to finish it off this time around? And we'll see if those riders can keep this absolutely nailed. The team SZ, well, really looking forward to seeing Björklund and Bjarhed now joined by Svensson as well. These riders, so Matthias, Jonas, Henrik and Jakob, the SZ team from Sweden, really quick riders and capable of being in the mix at the finish. The Pavlova squad, what can we say about the team that won our prize money final last month and whitewashed the podiums pretty much on the way through? They were first and second and third in that final. They were first and second the week before as well. And gotta say, Jones, Vink and Knudsen, what a team. You need three in the team. They've got three very class acts there. The team from Next PBN, sure, good to see them back. Zach, Thomas and John back with us once again. Another team who are very strong. They were third in qualifier number 1 last month. We'll see whether they can get a top 3 placing in the teams this time around. The Belgian Waffle squad, well, slightly depleted. I think they're feeling a bit better, but we'll see if they can challenge Team Italy Castellia in here. So Team Italy Castellia A with Fumigati in here as well. The World League Swifters, that's David Henderson coming to come and join us on MyWhoosh. Great to see him coming in and riding this time round. Watch out for Full Gas as well. But remember, the teams need 3 riders to qualify, not just 1 or 2. So whilst they represented their team, and it's great to see them, they are going to be up against all of our individual riders, and it is a big cast. If you think our category 1 teams are packed, category 2 is going to be even more packed instead. So I think we're going to be interested to see how these riders get on. It's going to be a very fast race. Now let's go on to our category 2. The UAE Falcons, very fast, very quick. And interesting to see if they can take victory. Hassan Al-Remesri, their star man. Climbers team, well, watch out for Il Pino, Giuliano, and Bello, Mr. G as well, all featuring right up in the mix. The Climbers team, winners of their category 2 competition last time round. So the Climbers team, very strong winners, in fact, in the finals and in the previous qualifier. Team Italy B, the team who are going to be taking them on, winners of qualifier number 2 and number 3. Hubbard's team who have been twice in the top 3 in the team competition as well. The DS team, well, they have achieved a top 3 in the previous month's qualifying races as well for the DS team, but they're not going to do that today. They need 3 qualifiers. Remember, Cycle Zone 1 always strong, and good to see Primera back in here with Njuki, and again, another team when they are represented in strength who can be up there. The rest of the teams have strong individual riders coming to get their qualifiers. And remember, it is 2 qualifying rides to come in and through. Watch out for the cast of thousands. This is a bit like a 1960s movie where there are thousands of riders out there as we hit the start line. So the riders are on their way out. They're off from the start line. The start absolutely critical, Emma.
It is indeed, and there's over 140 riders in this race today, so an absolutely packed race field. And the start is always really important on an esports platform, and today the race starts flat and then drops on a descent, so we're going to see some really quick speeds here, really fast today, Matt.
Indeed, and you can just see this big bunch moving out. Well over 100 riders due to take to the start line. Emma, how many riders were down on our start list? Can you remember off the top of your head? I think it was 144 or so, wasn't it?
It was indeed. So we've got 41 Category 1 riders today. Those are our riders in the yellow jerseys. We've got 54 riders in Category 2. Those are our riders in the green jerseys, and 46 riders today in Category 3. And those are our blue jersey riders on your screens today.
So a massive field in all 3 of our race categories. We're just jumping in with Mr. X100 at the moment, who is in that leading bunch. That start quickly starting to shed riders in the 3rd category. But remember, our riders are in 1st, 2nd and 3rd category competition at the moment have to battle their way around exactly the same course now, 44.8k. And this start is a fast start. We've got this little riser at the moment at 1.1 kilometers, but it very quickly turns into a downhill, and it just rolls its way out until we hit our first climb. And there is a little bit of a kicker on the way, but really interesting to watch on your screens at the moment. Let's run through this for you. If you've not watched a MyWhoosh race, essentially 3 categories of races first over the line counts, prizes for all 3 categories. And on your screen, we have what the riders are able to see. So top left-hand side is the riders' stats and data. This gives us their power numbers, currently 300 watts or so. This flicks green to black, green when it's a drafting rider, black when it is gone, into a lead rider, so they're not picking up any draft, they're not saving energy. We have the bar graph across the top, just flicking up and down as they increase that power. We have revs on there, so the pedal cadence, you can see that crank with the chainring there, currently around about that 90 marker. Heart rate 144, so working quite hard. We've got the speed that they're traveling, the time they've been racing, and the distance they've covered. You'll see that we'll flick to 2 screens regularly, and you can see at the moment Yusuf Badu currently at 1k, 1.9k, and we're with Thomas Thrall, a rider who's been top 10 in the qualifying in the second category racing. Now, it tells us which rider we're watching. Centre at top of the screen, currently Oliver Simmons. Top right-hand side, and this is our course stats. So how much climbing we've achieved, how far we are round to the 44.8 course, and the map and the graphic, which gives us the gradient. Now, this is absolutely key. So the grey graphic with the white number in at the moment will change colour. The steeper it gets, the further up that goes. And that is really, really critical to see exactly what gradient that's going to run on, because that gradient, it does change the riders and how hard they're having to pedal on the way out. Now, looking across on to the right-hand side, down the right-hand side of your screen, we have the riders that are around Oliver at the moment. Above it are the riders in front, below are the riders behind. As you can see, a number of riders, though, not making this cut, and you can see that on the dot-to-dot in the map. If you compare the left screen and the right-hand screen, you can see at the moment Hani Melo. He is with riders in front. Left-hand side, well, this is our leading bunch, and it looks like Fumagalli is currently just putting the pressure on left-hand side. So 1.7k covered for our category 2 rider that we just left behind. We're up at the front here with David, and currently 3k of racing covered. Emma, we're going to start running into those climbs fairly quickly, aren't we? What kind of distance do we cover before we start coming into there?
Yeah, so we are indeed. We will start coming into the first of those really short but really steep, punchy climbs that we've got on the course today. And that will take place at around 6k. So I reckon between about 5 and 6k, we'll start to see that. But we've got this rolling area coming in. As you can see at the moment, we're currently at 9.5%, 10%. So it's not dead flat on the way in either. This is quite a climby course, no long climbs, but lots of short, steep ones, as currently we're over 12% at the moment for these riders.
Indeed we are, and you can just see that is really kicking on the way up in towards the climb. So you can just see this gradient starting to break the group. This could be really decisive on the way through here, because we are starting to see the riders start to pull away at the front of this race here. So just in with Saeed Safrazad at the moment. He's in 8th place currently. He has some work to do, though. As he continues to push here, you can see in front there are riders who we would expect to be. There's 1 or 2 new names in the mix as well, which is always great to see here on MyWhoosh on the Sunday Race Club. Just in with the Jakob Björklund from Sweden, from the SZ team. And you can just see the watts that are coming out, nearly 500 watts. And that's cruising speed, I think, for somebody like this.
Well, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, traditionally when we see a long climb at the end and a fairly rolling road into, we see big bunches and big packs. We're not going to see that today because look at these riders. They're putting out nearly 7 watts per kilo in this front pack, these Category 1 riders. You know, this is a course that is making selections really early, and we're seeing a really strong group come to the front already. And what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 riders in that group now pulling away.
So 9 riders starting to open up the gap. 2 riders behind trying to come across the gap here. You can just see at the moment Mr. X100, interestingly here, right at the back of the pack, right at the back of the group, and he's on that steep section. This is not good news for Mr. X100. He's got to really pull in, and this is a really tough position to be in. I suspect he's looking for teammates who are further back, but at the very front of this group, Saeed Safrazad, Pablo Popovic from the UAE clan team have made the cut up in front. Behind Mr. X100 is being distanced, and this means you need to get back on to that group quickly. As we come over the top of the climb, you can see these speeds picking up. 50 kph from Michael Vink as they've gone over the top. We were on 15 kph on that steep climb.
Yeah, and this is what we're going to see all race long on this course. We've got steep climbs, but that means we've also got steep descents. And as we know on this platform, if once you go over the top of the descent, the top of the climb and hit the beginning of the descent, if you're not with that group, they are going to accelerate away from you really fast with the momentum that they've got behind them.
It is indeed, and you can just see Mr. X100 is chasing hard. And so we're just going to keep an eye on him as he goes up. This is the front of the bunch. Emma, just talk us through some of those riders who are just leading us out.
Yeah, so we are currently watching Mr. X100 on the left-hand side of the screen as he is riding through at about 4.4k into the course. But up ahead, 600 metres further up the road on the right-hand side of the screen, we've got Saeed Safrahari. They're leading out. So this is the 2 now that are chasing Mr. X100 is here with Hassan Sultan, and they're chasing hard to close that gap back to the lead group. And that lead group are pushing on, and it's amazing what a descent can do and how that descent can actually increase these gaps. Okay, so we're back in and we're fast and we're watching these riders here as they are on this climb. Currently between 9 and 10% of the motions now.
Well, you can just see from these riders at the moment that this is moving very, very quickly indeed. And we can just see these riders, Mr. X100, trying to make contact, but the gap is gone. And you can see that time gap, 5 or 6 seconds to Ferry. He's got to get back in there. He's got to move fast or he will be in trouble. So let's see if he can make his way back up to this leading group as they make their way up this straight at the moment. Let's see if there is going to be any kind of junction made between him as he comes up to them. You can just see the differences on the way in and through. So Mr. X100 at the moment, 35 seconds to a minute down, I think, at the moment on our leaders. This is going to take some doing to close that gap back out again, Emma.
Yeah, and this is a really different course for these riders today. These short, hard, punchy climbs are really taking their toll on these riders. And it's deceptive, Matt, because even though we've got these 6th, 4th category climbs, we've got shorter sections in between, which are just as steep as well. And we can see the damage that is doing and the types of watts that are being put out here. So currently we are in with the lead group at the moment with Fumagalli, Vujasin, Thrall, Knudsen, Van Elst, and they're really pushing on at 8k. The chasers are 700 meters back that we can see sat in with Mr. X100 behind, and this is only 8k into this 44.8k course today. The lead group now are currently on that steep climb with 12.5% and climbing, putting out 7 watts per kilo at the front of this group. This is an on-off course today, and the types of power we're being seen put out here. And what's interesting to note, Matt, behind us with Mr. X100 in this chase group is the power they're putting out on the descents behind as well, as they come off of the descent and they use the momentum that they're gaining to start the climb as the climb really kicks.
Well, interesting to see just how much work is going on here. We are seeing them on this climb. And do you know something? I think this is really, really where we see the teams pushing and chasing and challenging that UAE clan team. They've been so strong, pushing this in and really making them work. I think this is really going to be telling as they move on from here, because if they don't get this back to the UAE clan team, they're going to have done a lot of work realistically, and it's going to burn them out very, very quickly.
Yeah, I think you're right there, but we're seeing, and our viewers can see on the right-hand side of the screen, small breaks now in this group. So we've got a front group now, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 riders with a couple of seconds back to the next 3 riders on the road behind them. This is a really damaging course today to these groups of riders, and they're really having to work hard.
And it really does show, I think, Emma, as well, that you've got to be in the pack, you've got to be into the group, and you've got to be watching what you're doing to make sure that you actually are working hard, and you're actually making sure that you are covering yourself with all these moves, because these moves are quick, they're fast, and if the gap goes, it's really hard to close down. You've got to use that momentum, haven't you?
Well, you do have to use the momentum, and riding the downhills and thinking about how you ride the downhill section into the bottom of the climb is really important. And you can see from the course map that's in front of us at the moment, it's up, down, up, down, up, down, where these riders are now coming into as we're progressing through 8, 9, 10k of this course today. And it's unrelenting, this course is going to be as we move through the latter stages of this. And I'm going to be really interested to see, Matt, who has the power of recovery and who is taking the recovery on the downhill to allow them the constant kickers on these really, really steep climbs today.
Indeed, and I think that is going to be interesting, isn't it? Recovery is key. And we talk about recovery. When you're racing on a platform and you're racing on MyWhoosh, that recovery is key. I mean, we can see micro rests, can't we? But we also see sort of major rests as well.
Well, I think today it's the micro rests that are most important. And that's a really short period of rest, but it's really important in terms of to be able to drop your heart rate really quickly to enable you to push again. Because however good these riders are, they can't punch at 8-9 watts per kilo constantly. You know,
Definitely. Now, one of the things that we've always loved about MyWhoosh is the way that we race on MyWhoosh, and we have the prize money finals. It's really important to the team at MyWhoosh that the racers actually get rewarded for what they do, and that we can build a sustainable platform. So this is going to be a key. And what you'll find, we now have a prize pool for the qualifiers as well. So at the moment on today's exchange race, if you're in the UK, the 10,000 AED for the win in the individual men's category 1 or the individual women's category 1, UK sterling, to give you an indication, that's over £2,000, nearly £2,500, a substantial sum of money, but it runs all the way through category 1, 2 and 3, and it's equal across both categories as well.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, isn't it, Matt? So we're seeing the qualification races now also have that prize pool that the end of month final used to have as well. And it's really interesting because I think we've got one of the biggest race fields that we've seen in a long while as well today. So it's obviously pulled people out and got them on their turbo trainers today.
Well, and I'm not surprised realistically, because I think if I wasn't commentating, I want to be riding it, because it really does show just how hard people are working on here, and it rewards them for that. And it does mean that there's an incentive, and this I think will change the dynamics of the racing, because we are seeing people racing like crazy to get into that top 5.
Yeah, and look how hard they're pushing as well. And we've got a split screen in front of us at the moment, with the right-hand side of the screen on the downhill, the left-hand side of the screen that we're now seeing as the full screen, still on a slight climb, but they're chasing hard with some gaps back. And this top 10 are split to pieces now, and it's just going to be amazing to see whether the front of that race field can hold on with the constant climbing they're going to face today.
Well, indeed, and I think that is really critical when you look at this, the race field working and splitting. I think for me, this course is brilliant for racing. I'd absolutely love to race this course, because it is attack, break, attack, kick, rest, constant variation, and people's physiology changes. And you could, of course, train that. I mean, there's over 700 different workouts on MyWhoosh at the minute, and that is really a way that you can improve your riding, isn't it? Is get a training plan and actually be structured in what you do, something that I'm not particularly good at. One man who I think is definitely clearly very good is Mr. X100, who is currently chasing at the moment. We've got Lionel Vujassin on the front of the race, the rider you know a little bit about, Emma, I think.
Yeah, Vujassin was indeed part and parcel of that esports world championships that took place earlier on this year, and finished in 5th place, Matt. So a very regular and strong esports rider, Vujassin.
He is indeed. And Mr. X100 at the moment, just going past SS. He's picked up his teammate here. So SS, I think, going back to go help Mr. X100 back into the mix here. Now, they do have some ground to make up. They've about 7 seconds to the back of the first group in front of them. And this chase is on. Look at those heart rates. So Vujassin at the moment, with Popovic knocking him out. Safrazad in there. SS and Mr. X100 chasing behind. The UAE clan team here, I think, are showing why they're such a strong team. But you'll see Vujassin on the attack now. Vujassin often riding for the Yorkshire Pudding Express fits right in with their mindset of going for it, of attacking all the time. Now, here we see this is going to be Mr. X100 and SS. They come up on Thrall, on Van Aelst and Fumagalli. They've got 30 seconds to make up the road. They're just going to go blasting past them there, Emma. And now we can see that they are currently in what is 8th and 9th position. They've 23 seconds to make up. This is going to be interesting as they work back, but this is costing energy.
It is, but Mr. X100 and SS, they're really great tactics, team tactics. You know, much better to be with a teammate or in a group to be able to take part in a little bit of rest and those micro rests we were talking about in terms of turning your watts green, taking in the draft from other riders around you. You know, those are the tactics you need to be thinking about here, because you can't do all the work on your own to close those types of gaps that we're seeing today. You need the group around you, you need your teammates around you, and you need to be able to work together to achieve the goals that you're setting yourself.
You do indeed, and I think that teammate, that work that they're doing is going to come through now. I'm just watching on the right-hand side of the screen now. We just saw Saeed just remind everybody that as they continue to push, they're still towing Saeed Safrazad up to the front. He's going to have an easy ride here. I mean, Saeed was 5th in qualifier number 3, I think it was, last time in July. He's just going to get an easy ride, isn't he? Popovic is going to do the same. I mean, Pablo Popovic, a rider who we know can win. He won qualifier number 1, qualifier number 3, never outside the top 10 in the racing. He's in that group, in that leading group, behind Mr. X100 and SS, making the bridge across. Fumagalli, Thrall and Van Est can't stay with them on this big push across. So right-hand side of your screen, Saeed Safrazad, Pablo Popovic. Left-hand side of your screen, massive chase coming here. This is from Mr. X100 and SS on the chase. They are trying to close it down. It's less than 200 meters between them. You can see the blue arches that the riders have just gone through on the right-hand side of your screen, just coming into sight for our riders on the left-hand side of your screen. This chase is coming. Popovic and Safrazad are sitting in the wheels here. And remember, now that we've got that prize money, top 5 places up for grabs, massively, massively, massively a big incentive. It certainly would be for me. I don't know about you, Emma.
But it's interesting, Matt, isn't it? Because you can see that group behind are now closing down that gap. At one point earlier on in this race, it was 500 to 600 metres. The first group on the road had on the chasing riders. It's now down to 200, maybe 300 metres maximum. So they've closed half that distance. And I think using this section of the course that is flatter, more rolling, and is enabling them to come back to this front group. And it's going to be really interesting to see if they can close that gap now that they're in a group of 5 or 6 riders to do that.
Well, I think we're going to be interested to see what happens. You made a really good point when we were in our prize money final. Don't forget, you can go watch that back on the MyWhoosh YouTube channel. Go on there, click, watch them back. Really interesting to watch the racing and the dynamics in those finals. But the point Emma made in that final was that they chose their moment to come across the gap. At the moment that gap is not coming down much, you've got to put a lot of pace and a lot of power in when you're doing 46 kph. What they did is they chose their moment to attack, to come back across when they're on the climb, because when you use the momentum to come in, when you're on the climb, the physical distance between the riders is less and it is easier to come across because those speeds are relatively little. You can see the work that's being done by SS is at 7 watts per kilo. Mr. X100 almost in danger of being distanced here by his teammate as SS is about to make the junction, if he's not careful, and leave his road captain behind. Here's Mr. X100 in the blue on the left-hand side. You can see they're coming. The riders on the right of your screen will be able to see them coming, but they cannot get across at the moment because the pace difference is huge, and you've got to get that draft. You can see the volume of work. The guys in front, they're doing 3, 4 watts per kilo. They're doing 5, 6, 7 watts per kilo, and that is a massive, massive effort. And now that UAE clan team needs to really think about what they do here, about getting back the riders who they've got. So, because Mr. X100 at the moment is at 5 seconds down. Doesn't seem like a lot, but you imagine how far you can travel in 5 seconds. It's huge, and that is why I think we're going to see a move by Mr. X100. So 15 kilometers, over 15 kilometers in, we are over a third of the way through the race. 25 minutes of racing complete, and at the moment we have a leading pack of 6 riders, 2 chasers about to make contact, and that is in the shape of Mr. X100 and SS. They are due to make that junction. Here we go. So Mr. X100 has made the junction here. SS has made the junction. That now gives us a group of 8 riders on the road behind. Fumagalli, Thrall, Van Est, Simmons and co. left in their dust as they make their way along. 15K, more than 15K, apologies, 16K covered left-hand side of your screen. Now, right-hand side of your screen, second category competition here. Hassan Sultan working hard at the moment, looking to try and break this group apart. One of our regular top 10 riders. However, the people he's got with him, Johan Moreno. Moreno is really, really strong. He's a rider who got second in our final, second in qualifier number 4, a winning qualifier number 3, third place in qualifier number 2. Maglio's in this from the same team, from Team Italy B. Cristiano Maglio, top 10 in one of our qualifiers. It was in qualifier number 3, but I think he could well be in the mix. Dexter Abello is right in there as well. Abello, a top 3 rider in the qualifiers, 4th in our final. The quality of racing in the first, second, and third categories, Emma, really, really good.
Yeah, it is indeed, and really, really competitive. It doesn't matter whether you are Category 1, Category 2, or Category 3. The racing is superb, and the strength and depth of the racing is excellent. 54 riders on the start list today on Category 2, and we're seeing really competitive racing here with nearly 15k covered now in that course.
Indeed. So looks like Moreno and Miss in the right-hand side just having to work to get onto Sultan and Maglio's wheel. Interesting to see that Phil Graves is actually behind these riders. So I think he knows he's not going to be in the mix for those top 5 prizes, but getting a qualifying ride in on MyWhoosh. And in terms of qualification, Emma, you see these riders at the moment, they have to do 2 qualifying rides. So explain a little bit about what a qualifying ride is.
Yeah, so to qualify for the final at the end of the month, you're right, Matt. The riders have to do 2 qualification races, but those qualification races have to have verified results. And in terms of verified results, there are some specific things that riders need to know and riders need to do. So in an effort to maintain the fair and transparent racing that we see on MyWhoosh, there are a number of things that are really important. First of all, in terms of weigh-in videos. Yeah, so every rider has to submit a weigh-in video not more than 48 hours before the race, but no less than 12 hours before the race. So there's some real thinking here and planning here that needs to be done by our riders. But the other thing that they need to do, Matt, is dual record. So after each race, they need to submit their dual recording. Okay, it needs to be in an original fit file format. It needs to include an alternative source of power, as in not the trainer, so power pedals, a power crank, for example. And there are a couple of things that we would recommend. We would recommend that they delete all other devices from the head unit. There are a couple of things that catch riders out on the verification of the results. One being that they fail to submit the secondary source of data in time, and 2, that multiple devices are picked up from the head unit, so from the file, the fit file that they submit. So they need to be really specific. I would recommend that they go onto mywhoosh.com, read the technical guide, read the rule sets, and look at the frequently asked questions.
Well, that is a key. It was going to be my next question. Where'd you go? Because obviously our riders are not going to have managed to have written all this down whilst riding simultaneously and giving it big beats. So it is about making sure you go onto the MyWhoosh website. Make sure you go onto the links on there. Some great videos on the MyWhoosh YouTube channel. Jump on that as well. As you can see on the screen, we try and cover a lot of riders on the way through. We can do that by splitting the screens here. So race lead on the left-hand side, that group together at the moment. Nobody being distant from that at the moment. They are staying pretty static. Right-hand side of the screen, Category 3 riders on the way through, and we do try and give as much coverage to everybody as we can. Obviously, there's a limited amount of time that we've got to pack everything into, and of course, we can't watch everybody at once. Well, we can, but you wouldn't be able to make any detail out. So let's have a little look on the right-hand side at the moment. There's some really good riding here by Osama Kalfi going through. Looks like Gabriel Hirsch just behind in front, Jan Decker up there as well. So certainly seen a good ride, but interesting, these 3rd category riders in here. They're definitely mixing up. They're at 12.1k, but look at our race leaders as they start to make the way in. Currently at 19.1k. Don't forget, of course, these hills keep on rolling. The next big climb, I think, starts at 22.2k, and that is going to be our 4th category climb. This is the first big climb that we saw last time round. This is going to kick in at 22.2. That is definitely going to test our riders. So you can see on our screens at the moment, we've rolled through the first 4th category climb, the second 4th category climb. We've had this long run across the desert. We're currently at 19k, and that essentially means that we are coming up the little bump. We've got a slight dip, and then we're into our big climb. So those riders at the moment just up that little bumpy section starting to come up. It's 0.5, 0.6k. It's that slight drag up that really does test the legs. A little bit further back, Osama just at 12.5k here, and Osama 63 revs per minute. So that's quite a low rev per minute. That's going to be just powering around, keeping a nice revs. You tend to see the riders up at the top, up at about 70, 80, sometimes 90 revs per minute, although we do see some of the sprints going up to 100. And again, it's something that Emma's touched on in some of our previous shows, that is showing and seeing where the riders are revving, where they're putting in the pace, putting in the revs is key. So I know a lot of our riders go back on and watch it once again. If you don't, it's well worth doing as a rider, as a racer, to make sure that you know what happens and watch the tactics of the guys who are in the Category 1 competition, which we spend a lot of time focused on because they're the very front of the race, the best of the best. Make sure you have a watch and watch what they do with their pedal revs and the speed. Now, onto the right-hand side, Mr. G, we've got in there. We've got Marvin, Francis, Moises, Patrick Burke in as well. Fabio's in this mix. This is, I think, the riders are fighting it out in Category 2. Interesting to see, though, this course, we don't see necessarily the usual suspects up at the front, but our leading group, all experienced riders on the platform here on MyWhoosh. So SS, Lionel Vujassim, Pablo Popovic, Said Safrazad, Mr. X100, Michael Vink, Michael Knudsen and Ollie Jones in there. Of those teams, Jones, Knudsen, Vink, 1, 2, 3 last time round. The UAE Clan team, Mr. X100, Pablo Popovic, SS, Saeed Safrazad riders who are regularly our leading and winning team. They are challenged by that Pavlova squad. The question will be, who is going to take this on at the front? Who's going to be able to hand it out to those riders that they're with now? Vujassim is a rider who is very, very strong indeed. And Emma told us, I think it was 5th at the Esports World Championships, and that shows you just how good you've got to be when you're racing on the platform if you want to be in the top of Category 1, but it's here for everybody.
Yeah, and currently on your screen we've got the lead 3 in the Category 2 race, which is turning out to be just as exciting at 18, 19k in. But we're back now with the leaders as they start to hit that climbing section again. So let's not forget here, there's going to be 3 steep climbs in short succession here. And let's see what it does to this front pack this time round.
Indeed, and you can just see 12.3% is now kicking in. And that is going to be tough stuff now. Who has got the pace? Who's got the power? This is going to be interesting to see who can attack, who has got any kind of speed here. Mr. X100 just getting distanced a little bit here. He's got to pick the pace up. Now he starts to kick in. And this is where he lost contact last time around, remember? So he's got to go up here. Remember, this is the penultimate hill when we go around. Next time round, we are talking big, big distance. We're at 21.5k in here, and we are currently fighting it out. Mr. X100 trying to hang on to that leading group as we go up that climb, 13.1%. Vujassim, Safrazad right up at the front, really battling it out. Jones is right in that mix, but all these riders know they have got to get back in touch. If they don't sit in with those leaders, they are going to be in trouble. You can't afford to let those gaps go, because once those gaps go, then you know that you are going to really, really struggle to get back on, and you've got a massive fight. We saw that fight by Mr. X100, and he's having to do it again. SS Van Ace in front, just struggling to hold that pace, but the very front of the race, very, very quick indeed. A little bit further back, just on that run into the climb. Look at the pace difference, 46 kilometers an hour for Jakob Björklund, Svensson, Simmons in here. Looks like the Swedish team on a team time trial there with 3 riders in that group. They're doing 46, nearly 50 kilometers an hour into the climb. Even our leaders going over the top of the hill, even as it eases off to 9%, they're still sub 20 kph, and that is a massive difference. But look at the power they're having to put down. And once again, Safrazad, Popovic, right in this mix. They are up there mixing it with the leaders, but look at the time gaps behind our leaders. Van Elst at 4 seconds. You got Fumagalli about 11. You got Mr. X100 about 12, and that is damage that's being done by that steep climb. Once you go over the top, the pace picks up, and suddenly you will be rocketing along. And when that happens, that is when things get very, very interesting indeed. Now, You can just see these riders really are having to fight for position to get themselves up over that climb. But Said Safrazad, with that leading group with Pablo Popovic, it could well be they're going to be holding the race for the UAE clan team. But do not discount that Danish Pavlova squad. They are absolutely rocket fuel.
Yeah, and it's amazing, isn't it? That one climb, 400 meters now between the front and the chasing group. And such a short distance has put that time gap back in. These climbs are short, but they are so steep. And there's a real technique to be able to put the power down for that and then to recover on these descents. Because take a look at this, the lead group are 65-70 kph and they've dropped their wattage to 2.63 watts per kilo before they have to start to kick again.
Yeah, very interesting to see that now. Mr. X100 just fighting on the right-hand side of your screen, just trying to get back in touch. But look at this race lead, pace 77 kph. That is scary, scary fast. And onto the climb. They come watch these pedal revs. 146 pedal rev, little flick up there by Said Safrazad, leading this group out. 23.5k cover, so we're over half race distance. But remember, this course profile, we have a slight climb. We say slightly steep enough in between the first and second climb. Our second climb, big climb of this lap, coming in at 26.1k. So we are on the preceding hill at the moment, and this is going to be tough stuff for these riders. They've got to really push back in here. It's absolutely critical. So take us away, Em. I think I'm going to let you just keep an eye on them for the moment.
Yeah, and it's not categorised this climb that the front group are on at the moment. It is a small climb in between our two Category 4 climbs, but it might be small, but it's not small or not shallow in steepness. You know, it's a smaller climb, but it's still 6.3% overall. So it's not a small bump in the road, and it really does play a part in the recovery between the two Category 4 climbs. So we're currently in with Mr. X100 and chasing hard at 24.1k, trying to get back onto this lead group before they push through onto the next set of climbs. The lead group on the left-hand side of the screen have covered 24.5k of the course today. So 200 meters now back to the chasing group as they push on. The chasing group at the moment just going into the foothills of the steeper ramps, whereas the front group are now seeing over 10% again. So that small period of time they've had for recovery, the opportunity now to push on the next climb.
So Here we go over the lakeside. Thank you, Emma. Just doing a little bit of run around our studios here at the Full Speed Event Studios. Myself, Matt Payne here, and Emma Martin as well. And if you want to see what we get up to in between, covering the MyWhoosh racing, as out on the bike, as well as lots of other events. I'd like to say fresh from the Commonwealth Games, covering the mountain bike racing there, but I'm not so sure fresh, but slightly tab. I love the racing. We love great racing, Emma and I, and of course regular riders as well. So make sure you give us a follow. So jump on to the internet, follow at Matt Fixer Payne. Where can we find you on the internet, Emma?
So you will find me on Instagram and on Twitter at Biking Emma.
And of course, don't forget to go on to MyWhoosh. It is MyWhoosh on the Twitter, on Instagram, and of course on Facebook. Don't forget, of course, to sign up, jump, download the platform, and make sure, of course, you check out the new rules for the Sunday Race Club and the new prize fund, which is massive. There's no other word for it. It is brilliant to see the investment by MyWhoosh. Now, Mr. X100 here is working hard. Look at these numbers, 400 plus watts sitting in the draft at the moment. I mean, I think Stefan Van Aers, Michael Knudsen, and Vink have all really worked hard. Now, if you were Said Safrazad or Pablo Popovic, Emma, what would you be doing at this stage? I don't think really you'd want to rip up the front of the race because your team captain, Mr. X100, is off behind. However, you've still got to take the race. You're looking to take the race win, so you still got to wear everybody else out. So a little bit, they're going to be torn a bit at the moment.
Well, yes, but we are 25k now into the 44.8k race distance. And as we've already seen, Matt, the terrain today is really doing its job in terms of making this a really hard race. And we're currently in that midsection of hills. We're going to roll into the rolling section again before we come into the final section of hills. I think this front group are going to stay together now until we get into those final few segments, until we get into the last 5K of this course, where we see hill after hill after hill again going to come up to play with this front group.
Well, I think for me that is key, isn't it? I mean, we're watching Mr. 700 just rolling in here. He's coming downhill, 78 kph. Now he comes in to this next section of climb. Remember, this is the big steep one. This is the rehearsal for the race finish. And when we're on here, this climb, 110 meters of a gain in 0.9k. That is a lot of climbing. And as you say, Emma, 12.3% average gradient. That is harsh.
It is, and it's really interesting to look at Mr. X100's tactics here. He's very much banking on the fact that the front group are going high power up the climb and then using the descents and the flats to recover, and that is what they have been doing. Mr. X100 has been sitting at a more constant power and actually closing that gap while the front group are up and down and up and down and up and down. So he's riding this race and this course very differently to some of those other riders in that front group.
He is indeed, but it is being effective if you look at those time gaps. And he's got SS back for company now. You've got Stefan Van Ernst in here, so this is going to become a group of 3 riders. The race leaders, though, are continuing to push on. And Pablo Popovic and Saeed Safrazad are 35 seconds up the road. That group you can see on the left-hand side, top left of your screen, are up the road, and we're just riding in with them now. Just about to come past one of our Category 3 riders, and that is one of the good things, isn't it, about having a nice circuit here? Because if you're racing, you actually get to see, just like it happens in real life, believe me, I should know, you get to see the race leaders come hurtling past your elbow and go off into the distance. So Pablo Popovic and Michael Fink are distancing the riders behind, but they're actually catching riders who are set off, who are coming around. They're on lap number 1. These guys are coming around to complete their second lap and come up to the top of the finish. But remember, because we finish at the top of this hill next time around as well, and that is going to be brutal. It's a pretty sadistic course design, to be fair, but we want it tough. We want great racing here on MyWhoosh, and we want you to come and join us. Make sure you download that app. You can join us on PC, on the iOS system, on the standard Windows system. You can do it on your phone. You can mirror it up onto any Apple device, so you can watch it on your big screen. You can put it on a projector and put it on your pain cave wall. And don't forget, of course, it's always great to hear from you. So if you're watching, if you've got some feedback, don't forget to get in touch with myself, that's Matt or Emma, on the Full Speed event site. And of course, all of that backed up by some serious investment by MyWhoosh. The prize pool for all of our qualifiers, it's a massive prize pool. Men and women on the same prizes, 10,000 AED for first prize in Cat 1, running right down to 1,280 AED in Category 2. And that's still a substantial sum of money to win. And racing on a Sunday, but don't forget, of course, prize money when we get into the finals. Not only we've got that, we've got the team prize as well.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to take a look at when we saw that prize pool pop up is it really gives us a clear indication of how the riders fit into each category. So you saw there on the left-hand side the watts per kilo of the categories, Matt. So the Category 1 riders, the men have to have a 4 watts per kilo average for their FTP areas. Women are over 3.75 watts per kilo. So these are really high levels of riders for our Category 1 teams.
It is indeed. And we've got to remember, of course, it's FTP plus their 20 second, 10 second. There's a lot of metrics that go into there that make up that number. It's not just taken on one number, is it?
No, you are quite right, but it does give our riders who might be watching this today and thinking, oh, is this for me or is this not for me? It gives you a really clear, rough guide into which category you might be put in, but gives you a guide as well as to the range of riders that are here today, Matt, because whilst those Category 1 riders are pretty much sitting above 4 watts per kilo for their FTP plus other stats, the Category 3 riders are below 2.75 for the men and below 2.49 for the women. So a huge range of riders racing today.
Definitely, and we can see that the work being put in. It's definitely lots of watts per kilo coming out of SS at the moment. 10 watts per kilo as he's on the climb. Remember, this is about putting in the sprints, putting in the pressure, putting in the power. You can just see at the moment, because it's eased off around the late side, they know that time gap is 29 seconds. And we saw this last time. SS and Mr. X100 working like crazy to try and pull the gaps back up at the front of the race. So Lionel Satin and Michael Vink, Said Safrazad, Knudsen and co all battling away on this here. And I think once again we are seeing Michael Vink, the aggressor in this, the Danish Pavlova rider. We saw him really aggressive. We saw him battling it out. Ollie Jones, the same. Remember, when we came into the finals, Jones took victory. It was Knudsen in second and Michael Vink in place. They are up the road 44 seconds from our chasing group behind. And remember, these teams, they don't want to let that team victory go. Although there's no team prizes in the qualifiers, there's a lot of pride at stake. Can they defend that team pride? Can they work to take it? It's 3 riders, the best 3 riders' time that counts, and that is what we're looking to see here. So great racing here on MyWhoosh. Don't forget, lots of great action you can watch back on the YouTube channel as well. And this race action really is starting to show just why these riders are regarded as some of the best riders in the world. And we've got riders like Jason Osborne now out and racing for the Koenig squad, initially now gone over to the Alpecin squad. And that's the level of rider who we see out and racing here on MyWhoosh. Now, Mr. X100 and SS regulars riding together. If you go out on a MyWhoosh's ride, regularly they are going to be out and riding on there, as well as riding the Battle of the Bots and the My Bunch Racing. And that is key. Make sure you get out and ride on the platform, because riding on MyWhoosh, it is so realistic when it comes to riding. It really does feel just like you would find outside and riding. And once you've got those hills with the drafting, there's not sticky draft too much, which is where you get stuck behind somebody, which you don't get in real life. It is definitely something that you would see when you are riding on an esports platform, or you playing on esports. You get the characters sticking. Don't get that here so much. It's very, very fast and responsive. And got to say, Emma and I were looking back through some of our previous coverage and just commented on just how the platform has improved, and that constant evolution is great to see. I mean, you were looking back when you were going brighter, bigger, bolder, faster, lots of improvements, and that constant investment is amazing to see. It's great to see.
Yeah, and you are quite right, Matt. So lots of changes, even in the last few months. Riders who have been watching the footage and watching the race coverage, the racing has been exciting all the way through, but you can really notice changes and differences to how the racing is being presented and how we're making it easier for our viewers to follow the action. So all really good, and we're seeing regular and constant changes, which is fantastic. But Matt, I'm going to take you back to the action here, because I am watching this group of 6 out front taking some recovery, and the group of 3 chasers continuing to chase. So the tactics aren't changing here. This front group is sat up now, recovering and making the use of the change of the terrain in front of them. I say that, and we're about to see someone go off the front. But that chasing group of not changing their tactics. Well, they are holding steady.
Michael Vink has gone, hasn't he? It's Michael Vink who's gone off the front here, and this is now getting interesting. We're at 30k. We have now got this long flat run. Remember, before we come back in towards the big climb. Our next big climb starts at 39k. Vink starting to break this up. He doesn't want the riders behind to come back. And Michael Vink, great to see this aggressive attacking riding. He's gone clear. Said Safrazad is answering him. Knudsen is in there. He's teammate of Vink, so he's getting a free ride in here, following everybody who's trying to come across. And Vink and Knudsen cannot be discounted. Remember, Ollie Jones, he has a habit of sitting quietly, and then when it counts, boom, he's gone. And that is a great tactics. Now, you can just see Safrazad pulling that gap back down. Vink is there, and the UAE clan team really are taking on the team behind. It is going to be really, really interesting to see just what to see Who is going to get there? Who will get close? Who will not get close? Who is going to put the attack in? Can Safrazad hold Vink at bay? Can Vujasin show us that he can come away with a top spot? He's got a 9th place in the finals. He's got a 5th place in qualifier number 4. Will he be able to pull out something here today and win that prize money? Will he improve on the performance? Remember, the more time you spend riding on MyWhoosh, the faster you will get. It is just learning like all disciplines, whether that is BMX, mountain bike, cyclocross. I've crashed at pretty much all these. It shows I need a bit more practice. It is the same. Learning those skills are important, making sure you know when to put the pressure on, when to chase, when not to chase. At the moment, Mr. X100 having to chase this leading group on your screens. Fink, Knudsen, Safrazad, Jones, Popovic and Vujasin. They are the leading riders, with Vink, Knudsen and Safrazad currently 2 seconds clear of the riders behind. Then we have our chasing group on the left of your screen. The gap at the moment is about 500 meters. And I think we always say riders are distance. When they chase and get back on, they were distance in the first place for a reason. Now, 9 times out of 10, it's because you just ain't quick enough. I should know. It is always a reason. Question is, if it's mechanical, how many times can you chase back? Because that takes energy.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at this front group at the moment, Matt, and thinking about what tactics are they playing, because this is the long rolling section before we get to 39.3k, which is where that final section of hills come in between 39.3k and 44.8k, which is our finish line today. And the only thing I can deduce is the fact that they really don't want that group of 3 riders behind them catching them and turning this group of 6 into a group of 9 and carrying them into that final section that's going to be a really hard bit of racing today.
Well, also, we've got that team dynamic playing out, because we have Danish Pavlova with Jones, Knudsen and Fink. 3 out of our 6 leading riders are from the same team. You've then got Vujasin up there, but you've got Safrazad and Popovic in that leading group. 3 riders to count. If all that Pavlova squad come through in front of the group and have a big enough time gap, they will take away that team win. Along the way, they might even as well, of course, take a top 5 position. But the UAE clan team have to get a rider back into that leading group if they want to be in contention. Because if your third counting rider is 30 seconds, 40 seconds down the road, it's going to be game over. You're only going to be in second place, as the great Nick Craig, fantastic off-road rider, says. Second place is first loser.
Oh, that's harsh. That's really harsh.
But that's the mentality of winners, and that is why all these riders are so good, because they are so focused. They turn themselves inside out time and time again. Let's see where they're going to be. In fact, Tim Gould also says that as well. Another great rider on and off-road. Bit of a legend round where we go out and train him regularly. And these riders, very, very quick riders, they have definitely a winner's mentality, and that's very telling. So the groups at the moment, let's give you a summary as we approach 35k of racing covered. We're currently on the flat section of what is a 2.5 lap race, essentially. We have a flat section, a hilly section, flat section, hilly section, flat section, and a hilly finish. At the moment, we have our race leader, 6 riders up the road by 17 seconds on a chasing group of 3 riders. The 3 riders chasing SS, Mr. X100 and Stefan van Enst on your screens at the moment. They are trying to get the gap down to a leading group of 6. The 6 leading riders, Ollie Jones, Michael Knudsen and Michael Vink, all from Danish Pavlova squad. The UAE clan team who are chasing have got teammates up on front. They're on the right-hand side of your screen in the shape of Pablo Popovic and Said Safrazad. They've also got line of Jasin in there as well, just to mix it all up on the way through. And that means that there is a real tactical battle for the team win going on. And you can see it on your screens right now. Michael Vink, 7.3 watts per kilo. Said Safrazad having to answer the attack by the Danish Pavlova squad. Every time this speed goes up, they put some more time into the chasers. Chasers keep pedaling away steadily, coming back in. I'm joined here by Emma Martin. Emma, we've been watching this racing. It's great to have your insight on this. We keep on seeing these riders, and you said the smoother riders, they're sitting and doing the paces, they're bringing them back. They're back down to 16 seconds. We've seen them try and pull it back on the flat. We've seen them put pressure on the hills. Time to get off the fence. Are they going to make it?
Well, it's really interesting, isn't it? And you see these different types of tactics play out on the climbs, as we've seen in the Tour de France, where we've got explosive riders riding up, down, hard effort, recover, and other riders who sit at a constant pace. They know literally to the beat per minute of their heart rate where they can sit and for how long. And they use those tactics to close the gaps of the riders who are up, down, attacking. And that's exactly what we're seeing play out in front of us today. You know, Vink is putting out 7-8 watts per kilo, and then you'll see him sit back at 3.5 to recover, and you'll see his heart rate drop really quickly, and then he'll go again. Whereas you're seeing these three riders that we've got on our screen at the moment, where we're sat with Mr. X100, Van Elst, and this group, they are sat pretty much at 5.5 watts per kilo, continually on this rolling terrain and trying to close that gap. And at the moment, it's working for them. They're down to 12 seconds.
Well, down to 12 seconds, and this is going to be all about this final section. So, as you see, the riders now start to hit the gradients. They're going to come out of this flatter section, and they will roll into the hills once again. Let's get you some key numbers on that course in a little bit, but we'll be showing you those hills and that profile, I think, at least one more time before we come into our finish, and just show you what we've got in store. But we can see that the riders at the moment are working hard, and that time gap that we're keeping a check on is coming down. Interestingly, Saeed Safrazad, I think, has been told to get on with it. He's been given the chance to go for it. He's closed down on our leader. I think that is Vink. He's just come up on the wheels of there. So that certainly looks like Vink's avatar. All of our riders able to personalize their avatar. Saeed Safrazad, blue hat on there. Michael Vink has the slightly, not got a beard jealousy, basically, and that slightly balded head. Purple socks on my screen. I think if my colour on my screen is correct, gold shoes and yellow jersey there, and out of the saddle there, really pushing on. There are two leaders, and they've really started to open the gaps back up again. This time around, though, it is the two of them, the chasers behind. That is Popovic, Vujasin, and Jones. Knudsen are in front, and they're about to get caught here. So Vink has gone clear. 4 riders have dropped off the pace, and they are being closed down. You can see the gap on your screens at the moment. And I think once again, we are going to see a coming together of the groups. We're with Group 2 now. So Mr. X100 currently in Group 3, closing in on this. Group 2 by a couple of seconds. This is the race lead. It is Vink with Safrazad sat on his heels, sitting in the draft. He's not going to contribute. My response is usually quite forthright. If I was ever sat on the back of somebody and I had teammates behind who I wanted to bring in and somebody asked me to work, it was pretty much, you must be kidding. There isn't a chance in anything that I am going to go up on the front and contribute to something that's going to damage my team. Because that is what it's all about. It's about riding strongly, but also taking away that team victory and using your head. And one of the reasons why riding on MyWhoosh is so much fun, because you've got to use those tactics. You've got to think about your race tactics, how your performance is, what you're doing, where you're going, who you want to put at the back of the group, how hard you want to attack. Our chasers now make contact. Big group now sat behind. We have a huge pack now chasing 2 riders, Vink and Safrazad, up the road. Vink from the Pavlova squad pushing on, but it now means that we have 3 UAE clan team, 3 Danish Pavlova squad riders, basically equally matched. Pavlova and UAE clan team with a 1 rider apiece in the leading duo, and plenty of riders behind to back them up in that chasing group. And it is going to be about, let's see, who is down there to take this on, who is going to be able to push the limits and really get themselves up in with a chance. Here we're heading in to the climb. We are at 39.1k to go, and we are about to hit the penultimate climb here. And there's some quick stats.
Yeah, so we are about to hit the penultimate climb here, but we've got, so coming in from 39.3k to go, we have 3 climbs before the finish. The first 84 metres, 0.9k in total distance, but an average gradient of 9.1%. We then come into a small bump, I'm going to call it 0.8k at 6.3 before our final climb, which is 0.9 of a k, Matt, but at 12.3% average.
So our leaders on the penultimate climb, a little bump in between, as Emma says, before that final climb. And you can see once again the damage is being done here. And that group that had literally formed a few seconds ago, the chasers now seeing damage being done. Now, this is where the UAE clan team have to make a decision. Do they abandon their road captain, Mr. X100, and push SS up and have those 3 riders, their 3 counting riders in there, SS Popovic and Safrazad? Will they abandon Mr. X100 because they are now so close to the finish they can't afford to do another chase back? There is no flat section to chase. Our leaders at the moment, Safrazad, Vink, they are clear at the front. They are tapping a rhythm out at the moment, and I think Pablo Popovic is going to join them here. Popovic is working hard here, and I think we are going to get the leaders come back together as a group of 5 or 6 riders potentially as they come around. Another of our riders just a little bit further back around that course, just lapping a rider here. So it's Safrazad leading, Vink in second, SS in third, Popovic in fourth, and I think those tactics are now clear. It's Top Gear rules, as the saying goes, and all of a sudden, Mr. X100 is now going to find himself in trouble. He's going to be left by his team. They need to get this team victory back. We saw them be pushed back into second place in the team win in the finals. They will want to take the team win back off Danish Pavlova squad, but Vink, Knudsen and Jones are also going to want to push them back out of contention. So this is going to be a real nail-biting finish. It's going to come down to the very few seconds, those final positions as they come in. 39.6k are covered for Mr. X100, nearly 40k for the race leaders. There are hundreds of meters between them now, and this is about pushing on. Who is going to open the gap at the front? As Emma has said, driving over the top, pushing over the top of the climb, dropping down the back of it, and picking up the pace is key. Look at the speed, 52 kph, and that means that they are moving at speed, 30 mile an hour basically, behind 25 kph as Mr. X100 starts to wind it up 15 miles an hour as he goes over the top, but the work rate now has got to come from him, and the time has run out. He might make contact with Van Aest, with Vujassin. I think the gap back now to our leaders just going to be too much here, but SS and Mr. H100, they're the counting riders for that UAE clan team. Vink, Knudsen and Jones are counting riders for the Pavlova squad. Thoughts, Emma? We're on this little riser very shortly, and then we're on to that final climb. Final thoughts before we hit that last climb, Em?
Yeah, I think this group is now back, and it's really interesting to see how quickly you can push on the downhill section to actually keep that gap larger. Mr. X100 here is going to join these 3 riders, but I think that front group now are 40 seconds clear. You know, let's just remember here, Matt, though, our top 7 riders are nearly 2 minutes clear of the rider in 8th place. So it's been some phenomenal racing from this top 7 today.
It is, and now our riders just come sweeping down off that hillside. They're down, are going to be alongside the lake very shortly indeed, and up over the water. And this is going to be a key here. Can they push on? Those gaps really have opened up the race lead with Safrazad, with Vink, with Jones, with Knudsen, with Popovic. Remember, further back, you have got Van Aest, Mr. X100, and Vujassin chasing. They are left in a deficit, and they need to push. That gap has gone to just under half a minute between them, and that is big gaps. That is something that's not going to come back down again, and it could well be that the Pavlova squad are going to roll on now. The hill comes up on the right-hand side. It kicks off away from the lakeside. This is where things are going to get very interesting indeed. And remember, of course, we are going to 44.8k, not the traditional 45k on this route. It means we've got a mountaintop finish here in the Talmorib route here on MyWhoosh. So, MyWhoosh, Sunday Race Club, coming in towards its conclusion. Our race leaders, Safrazad Popovic from the UAE clan team, Vink, Jones and Knudsen from the Danish Pavlova squad. They've distanced SS from the UAE clan team. He's at 20 seconds as Vink puts another dig in here. All these riders, though, fighting for individual prizes. We have prize money on our qualifying races. Top 5 riders in each of our race category going to be eligible for that once the results are verified. Behind them, the chase is on. Vujacin, Mr. X100, Stefan van Est, all trying to close the gap on our race leaders. But this is that big kick. 12.5%, 12.6, 12.8, 12.9. We can see those numbers are going to come. At the moment, they're rolling at the 10% marker, but all of the riders know that this is about being able to push. There's no more recovery now before that finishing line. They've got to really, really keep digging here as they make their way up on to that final climb. Remember, the top of the climb at 44.8k, and the gaps have opened here. So who is going to take away top spot? Who is going to be the rider who's going to be on the top of the standings on that results page on the MyWhoosh.com website? It's not going to be long till we get to find out who is on the top of the tree. Now, we have 2k to go for our leaders, and all of a sudden, he's woken up. Ollie Jones is back with us and in the room. He's come away from, I think he must hibernate behind his teammates on the way into the finish. Jones is up there now, and I wouldn't discount Jones from the win. He's such a quick finisher.
We see this regularly from Ollie Jones, don't we? We see Vink go off the front and off the front and off the front, and Jones sat on the back of that lead group literally till they get within 2 or 3k of the finish. And then all of a sudden, Ollie Jones comes alive.
He does indeed, and I think the Vink, Knudsen and Jones team is such a great mix. It works very, very well. And, you know, it's why they can challenge a team that's as strong as the UAE clan team. Look at this. Here we go again. Michael Vink on the attack. He's going to push on. Is Vink going to be attacking all the way through and then taking the win? A quick response. So look at this. Safrazad quickly on him. He's not giving him a centimetre. No matter what Vink is doing, Safrazad's trying to respond to this. Popovic is going with them as well here, which is really interesting, as Knudsen is with them too. Jones is holding them at bay. SS, Mr. X100, Stefan van Est, and line of Vujacin, all distance. It's going to come down to who's going to take this on at the front. So at the moment, Safrazad, Vink, Knudsen, clear at the front. Popovic chasing with Jones, Mr. X100. It is going to come down really to seconds between these teammates. It's Pavlova in the driving seat, and now we're on to that final big kick here. We are on that run. We have less than 1k to go. We are now at 800 meters to go. And you can see Knudsen now. He's been relatively quiet. He's putting a couple of digs. He's got Vink on his wheel. Safrazad is just about holding the wheels. Now Safrazad comes up on the shoulders. Saeed Safrazad, he wants to take the top spot away here. Saeed, 13th in the final last week. Not characteristically his type of a race where he's normally battling it out for the win. We normally see him in the top 5, but I think he's coming back into form, and it's being left on his shoulders now for the honour of that UAE clan team. But he's got the Pavlovas there trying to squish him and give him some justice. That's here after the way the UAE clan team have dominated, but I think the two of them are going to do some damage. There's some massive watts per kilo coming out. There's some massive watts. It is breaking apart, and look at Ollie Jones coming now. Jones is not that far behind. We are now into the last 600 meters, 500 meters about to come up on the clock. Knudsen leading. This is just brutal. It's destruction of the leg muscles. Their lungs are going to be on fire. Their legs are going to be cramping all over the place. There's nothing that they can afford to do here but give it everything. They've got to give absolutely all they've got here. Nothing left. Knudsen's gone. He's pushing. Safrazad has attacked him again. And I think Vink finally feels it. He's cracked here, and this could be damaging for the team results. Safrazad's now pushing further. We are ticking away. We are about 300 meters to go. Less than 300 meters, 250 meters. It sounds nothing. It's all going to come down to who's got anything left. Nudson's answering no, but Safrazad's holding 8 watts per kilo, 8.2 watts per kilo. And Knudsen, he's not being distanced by much here. This could come back. There's nothing in it as they go in. They have got 250 meters on a 13.5% hill. They've got to push. Safrazad keeps on opening the gap, and then it keeps on coming back a fraction. This is absolutely desperate stuff on this climb here today as they come into the finish of the MyWhoosh race on the Sunday Race Club. Saeed Safrazad has got the gap. He can see the gantry. Will he be able to take victory? Knudsen is coming behind. Knudsen wants to get this gap down, but Safrazad is accelerating up as the gradient eases. Safrazad opens the distance here. The UAE clan team are going to claim top spot in the individual race here as Saeed Safrazad is going to take victory behind him. Michael Knudsen's going to come through in second place. So it is the clan team in 1. It is Pavlova in 2. Behind him is Vink. He was in touch. He almost made it as they came in towards the line. There's hardly anything between our riders on the run-in now. The gaps are in seconds. Vink is going to come through. He's taking 3rd place here today. Behind him comes Jones, and I think it's going to be 2, 3, 4 for the Pavlova squad. In they come, so they're going to be our team winners here today. Safrazad taking top spot, and you can see what a win there. And look at those time gaps, Emma.
I know, and wasn't that not just an amazing final climb? They were pushing on really hard there. So first place going to that UAE clan team in Safrazad, coming across the line in 1 minute, 10 seconds. 1 hour, 10 minutes and 57 seconds. Maybe I should put my teeth in. But then the Danish Pavlova's taking 2nd, 3rd and 4th with Knudsen, Vink and Jones.
And Popovic comes over. He's in 5th place here today. Another top 5 for Pablo. It's going to be 6th place for Mr. X100. And I have to say, Mr. X100 and SS probably have expended the most energy today with that continual chase to get back in touch. So the riders coming in and through, but those time gaps, I mean, those riders have basically come pretty much back together again. It then blew apart on that run in, and the real ruler style course with the constant attack climb, bit of flat. You've got to be a massive all-round rider to be able to ride it. You've got to be able to climb well. And it does mean that we see different riders up at the fore of the racing. So let's see who is going to round out our top 10. Stefan Van Ace comes through. He's in 8th spot. And that comes through 1 minute 43.074 down on our race leader. And Safrazad really did push over the top, another 6.848 seconds as he came through between him and our 2nd place rider. And looking at those watts per kilo for the average of the race. So whilst that category is people above, category 1 is anyone above 4 watts per kilo in this race. And remember, these categories are dynamic, so they do change week on week to get the categories so that there's racing for everybody. And everybody in category 2 and 3 has a chance. Very, very high, 5.5 watts per kilo, 5.6, I think, from SS coming through.
Yeah, and I think they tell a story, don't they? So you can really see those riders who are up, down, up, down, up, down. You know, Safrazad, Knudsen, Vink, high watts. Look at Ollie Jones. We were just talking not very long ago about him sitting at the back of the group. 4.9 watts per kilo average in that race. That rider knows how to draft.
Indeed, and he was sitting very, very smoothly. He sat in the draft, he saved his energy, he used it when he needed it, and that is key. Now, we're just dropping back a little bit. I think this is going to be down to our first, 2nd category rider out on the course, Hassan Sultan, being chased by Christian Maglio. They are still continuing to push on. Our screen's just moving up just to get the double check that we don't got anybody missed on the way through. And certainly it looks to me like Hassan Sultan at the moment leading that category 2 competition, then Maglio, then Abello, and that is very telling indeed, because Hassan Sultan really is pushing here. He's a regularly strong rider, and he's got good company. He's got Costa, he's got Graves around him. That's going to help, because that's extra people who are quick to keep pulling him forward behind Maglio. Really has got his work cut out to close it down. It's only 14 seconds gap at the moment, but as they come in towards the finish, it is going to test our riders. And these time gaps, Emma, and we've seen quite often our leading second category riders come over the line very, very quickly. We've still only got 9 riders in through the finish, and I think the prize money, as you can see on there, really telling on the way through. Don't forget, of course, today in our qualifier, the same in qualifiers 2 and 3 and so on. It is individual prizes only when we get to the final race of the month. Those riders who qualify, not just eligible for the individual prizes, but also for the team prize. And remember, it is 3 riders to count, a maximum of 5 riders in that team competition. But even with 5 riders in your team, you took that top team win, that's 10,000 AED plus your 10,000 AED if you took the race win as well. Not to be sneezed at. That's just under 5,000 sterling on current currency rates, which do vary, and you're not going to necessarily get that and all the usual T's and C's.
Yeah, I'm just going to go back to the conversation we were having before the prize money came up on screen, Matt, because you were talking about why there's such difference is in the category 2 riders, and that's very much due to the course today. This course has just been brutal.
It has indeed been brutal, and I think that sums it up nicely. Time for us to get ready for the women's race. It's been great to have Emma Martin with me. My name is Matt Payne, from myself, from Emma, from everybody on MyWhoosh. Make sure you subscribe to that YouTube channel and make sure you're watching. We're looking forward to an exciting women's race here on the MyWhoosh YouTube channel on the Sunday Race Club.